Raw dogging reality, raw dogging reality, 6 a.m. version. I'm gonna try and do this in the new year again. It's January 2nd. I missed January 1st, but I'm gonna try and do this at 6 a.m. before I start my day to get my thoughts out. So I think I have a theme for raw dogging reality. I want it to be about talking about your relationship with your inner child and connecting rather than disassociating because your inner child is terrified and being a tyrant in your life. Like your inner child kind of becomes your ego. And then you go to war on that ego. And then we have a lot of problems. But if your inner child just needs guidance and nurturing, guidance kind of from an inner father, nurturing from an inner mother, so it can be free and spontaneous. I got that idea from Michael Brown in the presence process. If that's all it needs, connection to feel whole again, then we're good. We have a solution. It's just about reinforcing that with new conditioning. So I want to offer to all my YouTube people the idea that when we reconnect to our inner child, we can do it in a cool way. We don't have to be Mr. Rogers. I want to be the more urban Mr. Rogers. And when we reconnect to that inner child, we're not going to have to use substances, overuse them, or overuse pornography, which I'm back on. I think I got back on pornography, and then I felt ashamed and didn't want to do raw dogging reality. But back on the porn occasionally, or we use overeating or over social media doom scrolling. So this is the theme I'm gonna try and like stick to. So if you're excited about your inner child and becoming friends with him and her, maybe it's both again, then stick with me. Otherwise, go fuck yourself. So basically, there's like a lot of stuff out there in popular culture right now because there's this movie Stutz, which is I only saw the first few minutes of, about like solutions. There's a lot of like almost like broing solutions, like yeah, man, we're gonna meditate, we're gonna take cold showers, and I like that stuff. I like cold showers. I like meditation. I like Stutz and the tools a lot, actually. But so it's like whatever works. But I think one thing that isn't as emphasized is like the slow sadness, which is a little bit more Buddhist, I guess. The slow sadness that your inner child feels, and this is especially true in the winter. And there's just like no avoiding it. Like my grief can be trusted. My grandmother died on December 22nd. My father died December 29th. My brother died December 24th. This is a grieving time of year for me. So like I'm not just gonna like fuck yeah, man. Do some cold showers and meditate, man. Yeah. Like we're gonna fucking do this. No. It's gotta be more of a slow sadness. So when I connect with my inner child, I like to look in the mirror and say, I love you. Sometimes I sing the song. My darling, I want you to know that I love you, I do, which is a beautiful song from the Hanuman. And then whenever I don't like someone, like Donald Trump, I sing that song to them because they're all kind of almost like projections of this like rejected self. And to be whole is to deny nothing, which isn't really a popular message. Um, so yeah, so I want to encourage people to get radical, to look at themselves in the mirror. I want to encourage you to do a meditation that I'm going to do after this YouTube. 3 minutes where all you say is "I love you" to yourself, and promise to make this more urban. It doesn't sound very urban, but look at this cup. I just want to touch your butt all the time, Dave, Tatiana. That's urban. So I think that's kind of like all I want to say. Oh, there's one other theme that I'm gonna keep reinforcing in Raw Dog in Reality. I guess raw dogging reality is about overcoming addiction, but it really doesn't matter. It's about overcoming your addiction to your own ego, to your thoughts. We're all addicted, even if it's just to our old stories that are keeping us in our limiting beliefs. But one of my favorite themes is the idea that there's one problem that encompasses all problems, which is kind of like the human ego. Again, it's not a threat, the human ego. It's not bad. It's just like a misguided inner child who's trying to control everything. And there's one solution that encompasses all solution, which is kind of like connection to everything. God, the quantum field, like feeling a part of, feeling whole, not feeling like there's the whole world and then there's you outside of here and you're this separate being that's under threat all the time. Threat of death. Gotta keep myself alive. You can't really keep yourself alive. I mean, you can do the next logical move, but you didn't beat your heart or give air to your lungs. So you're powerless. You're fucked. So just appreciate being here instead of trying to control your survival. So basically, I think I will conclude. I'm gonna try and keep these YouTube short, and maybe I've already failed, but I'll conclude with like a story about my life. I My brother died when I was 8. I mean my half brother. I had met him, but I was kind of gonna meet him for the first time while I was like conscious. So as far as I knew, it was the first time, and he was supposed to visit that Christmas, and instead he was shot in El Salvador. And some part of the child self says, that's my fault. I was really not conscious of any guilt, even up until like last year. Um, but that became an ego that made everything my fault, blamed me for everything. And I have a client right now who's kind of going through the same thing. He lost a grandparent when he was 10, and he went into major OCD mode where he blamed himself for everything, and he really hasn't stopped. And I'm sure he also inherited some of that OCD from his father. I'm sure I inherited some shame and guilt patterns, control patterns from my family. But the point is that what's the antidote for that conscious separation of the human ego that wants to blame itself for everything or blame others? um, Kind of like the only language the ego uses is blame and control. So what's the antidote? Is feeling a part of. And I'll give advice to this client, for example, and say like, all right, well, we don't, you know, the inner child's kind of being a tyrant. It wants to control everything because it's afraid. So how do we let go of control? Surrender and trust, like maybe just like go to sleep. Like, don't put your control onto this next moment. Instead, appreciate with gratitude what you've been given. There's only one prayer you need, which is thank you. And because I think he's struggling right now, he keeps taking my teaching and trying to put it back in the context of control. Like, oh, how am I not controlling this teaching well enough? Like, how am I not letting go well enough? Well, you don't really have to let go. That's an extra step because you're already whole and connected. So that's what the solution that encompasses all solutions is. It's the idea that you're already whole and connected, and you don't have to figure anything else out. It's the inner child who's wounded who wants to figure out and control. So you just say, I love you, thank you. It's like almost like it's a bully, you compliment it. So pretty much, I love you, thank you, and I'm already here connected is the only prayer you need. It's like too simple. And just a recognition that the problem is this wounded inner child that wants to control everything. And I think I'm just going to repeat that theme for 2023 and try and say it in somewhat amusing ways. So that's what raw dogging reality is now about. When you make peace with a spontaneous, joyful inner child by giving it guidance and nurturing and encouraging that it's already whole, you don't need much. You can just have a good, spontaneous, creative life and wake up at 6 a.m. and do YouTubes. Peace. See you tomorrow, I hope.